I had been diving for 20 years now, but still young at heart, and always ready for another adventure. My buddy on this particular mission was Sergeant Lee, who would turn 40 tomorrow and still looked like he could pass for 30. We were part of a Marine branch in an organization called DOSACT, the Department of Supernatural and Cryptozoological Defense, and we were assigned to find and kill some creature that had killed an entire crew of fishermen out in the Atlantic. The mission seemed simple enough until we found ourselves face to face with the wide open ocean. We had driven a small ship around a few nautical miles offshore and anchored right next to an utterly destroyed fishing vessel, which had tentacle marks all over the hull. "We're going to need a bigger fucking boat," I nervously laughed. Lee smiled and said, "It's called a kraken." I grinned. He knew all about these mythical beasts from old movies back when he was growing up. They were supposed to be large cephalopods that reached 50 feet long. But in reality, the kraken, or krakens, was an enormous creature resembling a giant mass of black flesh with long tentacles that reached out of it, appendages and feelers surrounding its smaller beak and more. It looked utterly horrifying, and it was notorious for taking down small ships in the depths of the Atlantic. If it ever got bored of eating fish or other sea life, its tentacles could wrap around ships and sink entire fleets. Lee and I geared up with suits designed by the Leviathan killers and both dove deep into the water and swam toward the kraken's last location. As we swam through the water searching for the nearby beast, we found the kraken was around 100 feet away and busy trying to eat a school of fish, but didn't notice them coming. Lee and I nodded before we surfaced, crawling onto the deck of our ship and dumping buckets of chum overboard. The kraken suddenly lost interest as it saw the sight of blood in the water, and darted toward us, waves appearing as the massive creature cut through the water. Lee, who was standing and holding a mounted .50 caliber machine gun pointed at the water, instantly began to fire when it got around 20 feet of us. The kraken's blood started to pour out as it thrashed and dove deeper, the bullets chasing it and piercing it as it sunk. "Time to shine," Lee said, glancing at me as we held our large knives looked into the murky depths before diving. We searched for the kraken, finding it around 80 feet deep in the water, slowly moving through the water as it attempted to rest from the severe damage. "I'll take the left side," I said, my voice coming through the microphone in my helmet and into Lee's. "You go right." When the kraken stopped, we both swam over to it and grabbed hold of a tentacle and started to cut away at the tough skin. It was a fucking nightmare as it started to thrash and get us off, but we managed to make it through the outer layer and into the soft flesh underneath, severing the main two tentacles. If we hadn't severely wounded it, the kraken would have easily torn us apart as soon as we got within a foot of it. "How do we know which part is the head?" "There's too many eyes to fucking tell," Lee asked, his voice filled with adrenaline. "We need to keep cutting until we can see the brain. Then we finish this shithead." I went ahead and continued hacking away at the creature's vital organs while Lee took care of the tentacles. After a minute of work, we finally saw something move behind the thick flesh. "There. We've got him," I yelled as I stabbed my knife straight through the center of the brain. The kraken let out a loud screech underwater before falling dead, losing all control of its body as it fell towards the inky depths below. We watched for a few tense seconds as it left a trail of blood as the school of fish it had previously hunted came back to feed on its corpse. "Do you think anyone survived on the fishing vessel?" I asked. "No way. This thing probably killed everyone on board without even breaking a sweat," replied Lee. "Then we did good work," I grinned. "This thing ain't killing any more people." We quickly headed back to shore, docking before being picked up by some of the other operations and taken to a base of operations in North Carolina, where we gave a quick report on the incident. The entire thing was covered up, the fishermen's families were paid to stay quiet, and Lee and I headed to our respective homes in our civilian vehicles. I headed home, a grin appearing on my face as I opened the door, and I was greeted by my wife, Marlena, who hugged and kissed me and gave me the usual rant on how thankful she was that I didn't get brutally slaughtered by some deep ocean beast. "Oh, honey," I waved. "You know I don't die." I heard footsteps running across the floor downstairs. Seconds later, my sons came running, jumping, and asking me about the operation as I took off my jacket and cleaned up. Once we sat together at the table, I told them about finding the kraken earlier that morning. Both kids listened intently and asked questions along the way. By the time I finished telling them about killing it, they were already asking when they could try hunting monsters and demons on their own. Not anytime soon, I responded, to their disappointment. But maybe someday when I retire. It's a hard job, but one day you both might do it.